Hi everybody, I'm Corinne Blackstone and welcome to my craft room. Before we get started, be sure to check out my Instagram listed down below. I post lots of fun little clips, tips, tricks, hacks, all the good stuff over there. Now in today's video, we are going to test out the brand new Smart vinyl from Teckwrap. This is 13-inch vinyl that is made so that you can cut it off mat with your Maker 3 and your Explorer 3 machines. I am really excited to try this out. It comes in a ton of great colors. And don't forget that when you shop with Teckwrap, you can use code Corinne10 to save 10%. I'll link everything that we're using down below so that you can find everything. Really easy, but I'm excited to get started. So let's hop over and make our design on Design Space.
Whatever we would do, we do it just for fun.
For this, we're just going to use a pre-made design just to make it super easy because we're really just testing out the vinyl. So I'm going to go to Images in Cricut Design Space, and I'm just going to click Browse All Images. They had added one that I think will be perfect, so I had seen it earlier, and I just thought it would be super fun, super cute, and it would show us how well this weeds pretty easily. Because I do want to make this a pretty large sign. So right here, Love is a Well-Stocked Craft Room. I'm going to select it and click Add to Canvas. Now that it's on my canvas, I'm going to go ahead and make this pretty big. I'm going to make it probably about 19 inches, just so that we have a lot of space. We can kind of see how it works without, making this absolutely huge, making it hard to film. So this is about the right size that I want to go. Now we're going to use two different types of their brand new Smart Vinyl from Teckwrap, which is again 13 inches wide, so we're able to cut this off mat. We are going to do a white, which is just going to be like regular permanent vinyl, and then we are also going to do one of the holographic vinyls. Now I did do some test cutting on these, so I can show you guys what cut settings work best for me, but I do always recommend doing some test cuts. Just use a little star and you can easily just, cut out your design. But I do recommend test cuts on every machine before you start with a new material. I'm going to go ahead and click Make It. With the new feature of the card mat in Design Space, you will see an extra card, but we are going to cut this without the mat. So what you want to do is select that setting, and you're going to want to make sure to tell it to remember the setting. So when you click on it, you'll see that there's a little box that says remember this setting. That way when you're cutting multiple colors, you don't have to go back and tell it that you're still cutting off mat, and then you'll see the new card mat feature as well. Go ahead and click continue, and what you're going to see here is it's going to have a lot of my options kind of blanked out, because with smart materials and when you select off mat, it only allows settings for smart materials. So what you're going to do is choose browse all materials, and it will show you the materials that will work with your product. So because we are using a smart material, even though it's not a Cricut brand, we are going to have to know which setting to use. So the matte metallic worked great on the holographic, and the smart vinyl permanent worked great on the regular permanent vinyl. But again, I do always recommend doing a test cut just to be sure that you are cutting, on the right setting for your machine. So go ahead and select the first cut that you're going to do, which is on our holographic, and then all you need to do is click done. It's going to tell the Cricut that we are choosing that one, and it will be ready to go. Now they do have an option to remember that setting as well. So if you're cutting multiple of the same type of vinyl, you don't have to go back to the machine or to your computer and tell it the type of material that you're doing. But because we're doing two different kinds, we're not going to select that. But if you're doing two of the same kind or multiples of the same kind, you want to make sure to select that box. So let's head over to the machine and get ready to cut. So here is the Maker 3 with the detachable roll holder. Like I said, it's a lot easier if you have the roll holder when using things when you're cutting, large decals. Now, I'm going to show you this. This is the Teckwrap vinyl. This is a protective sheet that is on top of the vinyl. So you're going to need to pull this back off of your vinyl. Now, I typically will leave it on, but because we're cutting such a big decal, I'm going to just pull it off the entire roll. This just really protects it more so in shipping, so I wouldn't worry too much about pulling it all off just to kind of get it out of your way. So if you've never worked with Smart Vinyl before from Cricut, what you want to do is you put most of your roll into this little cubby here. It's got little roller balls that kind of work. I don't think they work real great, but they exist. And then what you do is you slide it under this portion where it says Cricut, and then under this white portion in the front. This is actually a cutting edge, so when we're done with the decal, we can actually just cut it right out. So what you want to do, and I will say the holographic is really bendy, like it's very stiff. So you want to be careful when you're loading it into the Cricut, and you'll see that you may get some tunneling with it. So just be aware of that. And if you do get some tunneling, just kind of press it out, because that can affect your decal. So I'm just going to press out that little bit of tunneling. This is just a stiffer vinyl, and that's why it does it. So we're going to let it load in. And what it will do now is it's going to pull in the full amount of the vinyl that it's going to need in order to create our decal. Now it does make a weird noise because it's bending, so it's kind of hitting the back of my table. So you just sort of have to deal with that. But you'll see now that it pulls in the entire length that we need, and then it rolls it back on to the roll, and then it will start to cut. Again, this is a much stiffer vinyl than using like a regular vinyl, so just keep that in mind. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit the go button. We'll let this cut out, we'll trim it off, and then we can start with our white. Done. Before you unload, you want to use your little cutter, and you just press down and slide it across. And what I like to do is I kind of pull my roll out. You can pull the roll holder out of the way. It just makes it a little bit easier. And then just unload the mat. Now again, this is so much stiffer, so it does make quite a bit of noise when it is kind of rolling it in and out. I'm going to go ahead and roll that over here. Take the other roll out of your roll holder, and we have to reset our cutting setting. So the cut setting is going to be, for this one, just the regular permanent vinyl. Now again, this has the protective coating, so you want to make sure you take this off of this vinyl. It's really, really important that you pull it off, and you pull off enough that it's not going to get stuck in the machine. So for this one, I just pulled off a bunch of it. I didn't pull all of it off because this is a little bit longer of a roll. So again, I'm just going to kind of roll this back onto itself. I'm going to kind of roll it under here, and then I'll go set that cut setting to the correct setting, which is the permanent, the Smart Vinyl Permanent. And I'm going to slide this under here. I'll go set that cut setting, we'll load, and then we can cut. Alright, now the white's done, go ahead and trim it off. And the trimmer works either direction, so you can do whichever one works best for you. And I'm going to go ahead and put the white over to the side, get all this extra stuff out of the way. Alright, we're going to go ahead and put the Maker 3 away once we unload, and then we can go ahead and check how the weeding goes on these and see what we think. Alright, we are going to weed these. Now, the one thing I will say is you can trim this, so you can save parts of this and just use it on your mat if you want to. It's really up to you and how you would like to do this, because obviously we have some space up here that doesn't have anything cut. But we're just going to go ahead and just weed the whole thing and not worry about it. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of start peeling. I will say I hate weeding white vinyl all the time because it is hard to see my cut lines. And sometimes it's a little bit tricky to see what you're doing. Now, one trick that I like to do is I don't like to weed the entire large design all at once. So I will take a pair of scissors and I will trim off like this vinyl so that I don't have to weed the top and the bottom at the same time. That's just like what I like to do, but you kind of do whatever works for you. And this vinyl does tend to tear a little, which is not always a bad thing when you're weeding like the way I am. I don't mind the tearing because I don't have to cut it then, but just be aware that this does tear a little bit easier. But like I said, I don't really mind it when I'm trying to weed out a design like this where it's really big and I'm probably going to cut it anyways. But it is weeding really, really nicely once I kind of get past, you know, the edge of the letter. Like, it's really weeding very, very well. And if I wanted to tear, all I do is just sort of score it with my pin pen, and then I can just usually tear it along that line. but I think it's weeding pretty well. Now I'm going to go ahead and trim this off right here just because it's getting a little bit long and annoying. And we're going to just keep going with our weed, pulling it across. And you can see it is weeding really, really nicely. So then we'll get this line. Yeah, looks pretty good. Now we're going to have a big space in the middle here that doesn't have anything on it. And then we'll get down to the bottom where we will have the craft room words. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of pull across and we'll see how it goes. But it looks like it's going pretty well. Now you'll want to be aware because you don't want your vinyl to stick to itself, which is why I don't love doing these big pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this off a little bit because I don't like when the vinyl ends up sticking to like the other vinyl. It bugs me. So I'm going to trim this off just so I don't have such a large piece to work with. And we'll just keep going. I just like to work with a little bit smaller area. So you'll see here, like I'm just letting it kind of tear, just so I'm not working with such a big piece. So I'll just let it tear all the way across. And then I'll grab this little bit because this part needs to come off. All right, I think it's weeding pretty well, so let me go ahead and get the bottom weeded. And then we'll come back and do the holographic and see how that does. Okay, we're going to try the holographic now, which is definitely stiffer and much louder. But I think that this is going to weed pretty well. And you'll see that I'm going to trim this one down because I have a huge space right here where I didn't actually get anything cut on it. So again, I can save this and use it on a mat if I want to. That way I'm not wasting a ton of vinyl. But again, this is really stiff, so it's going to want to curl a ton. And that's okay, no big deal. I just want to get that bottom portion trimmed off because look at how much vinyl I can still use. So I might as well save that. All right, now let's go ahead and start weeding and see how well this does. Again, this one was cut on the metallic setting. I think the metallic holographic setting. It was the Smart vinyl setting. So we'll see how it does. It's a little stiff again. So like, again, this vinyl likes to rip, which is okay. Again, something I don't necessarily mind. I would actually prefer it to do that rather than trying to pull up everything at once. Now, I will say I might have been better off to do this on the more pressure setting. But it didn't do bad. It's just going to be, this is just the nature of this type of vinyl. It's very stiff. It's very hard to work with no matter what I've discovered. And actually this one isn't so bad, so I think we're doing okay. I'm going to go ahead and get this one all weeded, and then we can put our little design together. I guess it's kind of a big design, and see what we think. I would say that we did pretty well. It did have a few spots that stuck, but I do find that typical for this kind of vinyl just because it is a stiffer vinyl. So that to me is not something that would like turn me off from this as a product. Really so far, really loving it. It worked great with the off mat. Now the true test is going to be getting this off of the transfer or onto the transfer tape off of the backing, because that's where I struggle a lot with the Cricut brand. So let's go ahead and get out some transfer tape and let's give it a shot. I'm going to use the Starcraft transfer tape. This stuff is fantastic and it works really well with all my other vinyl. So I think this will be a really good test to see how I like it on a Smart style vinyl that is made to cut off mat. Now this is pretty loud, so I'm going to go ahead and skip past this part in the video. Now one thing I'll tell you is I don't like to put my entire decal down onto my transfer tape right away. I like to just do it in a part, like just piece by piece. Now I will say this is very staticky, just like the Cricut, so if you have pets, you're probably going to end up with pet hair on it. But what I like to do is I just lay down part of my vinyl, like part of my design down first, and then I kind of roll the transfer tape out. I just find that to be a little easier, and I will flip it over for this part, and then I just kind of pull it out. Again, this is loud, so I'm just going to turn the sound off. Okay, so once I've got that done, I'm going to go ahead and trim off my transfer tape just along the edge here and put that over to the side. I'm going to go ahead and get a squeegee. We're going to burnish this down from the front, and I'm just going to burnish right over the letters and the little lines. And you want to do the same down here at the bottom. And there is, again, pet hair on this, to be shocked. So I'm going to flip this over. So I'm going to try to do this like I did it, just like I did when I did the Cricut Smart vinyl. And I'm going to peel the backing off. Now, the one thing that I have to say with all the vinyl I found that is made for off-mat cutting, backing is really stiff. It has to be, but that does make it a little more difficult to get your vinyl to come off onto your transfer tape. And that was where I really struggled with the Cricut, because it didn't want to stick to the transfer tape to begin with, and then trying to peel it off. Because, you know, me, I like to fold it at a super sharp angle. This doesn't like to fold at a super sharp angle. So that became really a hassle, if you ask me, and I didn't love that. This, however, so far, other than the line up here, which I see didn't stick at all, seems to be doing pretty well. Let's just keep going and hope. I mean, I'm not doing anything like super crazy with it. I will say I have a few letters that don't seem to want to stick up here at the top, but I will say I'm able to press them back down a lot easier than I was with the Cricut brand. So when they weren't staying with that brand, I was really having a hard time getting them to come off because I couldn't push the backer down. So, all right, we've got quite a bit. Oh, got an O that doesn't want to stay. See, and this is where I kind of run into the problem, because see, like it's sort of stuck. It gets like a crease in it, and then getting it to kind of uncrease so that you can press where you need to can be a little difficult. But I'm still saying that this is way better than the Cricut brand completely. I did rip a couple letters. That was my own fault for not paying attention down here at the bottom. But this is going much, much better than the Cricut brand ever did. So far, this is way nicer. And if you want to cut large decals, I think this one will be really easy to do that with. Now, I do need to keep this on hand because the way I made this decal, I probably should have put the holographic down first, but being that this is such a large decal, I didn't want to chance, you know, kind of misaligning. So I'm going to put the design up here. I've accidentally turned the maker back on. I'm going to set this across the original like backer just so I don't stick my design to anything. Now normally if I was going to put this on something, I would just put it on something. I wouldn't be trying to line it up this way. I would just do this in two different like realms, if that makes sense. Like I would not be trying to line this up like this. But listen, friends, we're not putting this on anything, we're just testing. So maybe we'll do it like this, which is not like ideal, but I might do it this way instead. Ooh, I'm torn. I don't know how I want to do this because like I said, when I do large decals, especially if they're layered, if I'm putting them on something, I'll put them on individually, but because I'm not putting this on anything, I'm just testing this. I've used their vinyl a million times, so I know that their vinyl's good. I just want to test kind of like the cutter and like how it does with off mat. But I'm a little, this may be really off, and I'm going to try it anyways. We're just going to go for it. We're just going to go for it. I don't know, this might be really off, but it's fine. So, okay, so we'll do the same thing now. I'm going to burnish this from the back and see if this works better than burnishing from the front. Usually it does. We'll give this a good burnish from the back, and then we'll try to get the holographic off of this backer and see how the holographic does. Since it's such a much stiffer vinyl to begin with, it may be a little bit easier. So far, so good. So far, this is going a lot smoother than the regular until it stuck to itself. All right, let's keep going. We just have A few more letters. Oh, wow. Okay, so the holographic was so simple. That worked beautifully. It came off no problem. Now I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to wipe this off really quick because we do have a little bit of pet hair on this, because I'm just going to stick it right back on to the backer so that you guys can see. Again, please don't judge my lining up. I just sort of eyeballed. Honestly, I think it worked pretty well. Like, I would say, honestly, if you want to cut vinyl and you want to do big decals, Teckwrap. Get the Teckwrap. This is beautiful. It worked way better than the Cricut. It comes in a ton of great colors. It clearly worked cutting off matte, and I think it's going to be a much better option than the Cricut Smart Vinyl. You can definitely shop through my link down in the description down below. You can use Corinne10 to save 10% on your order. And if you shop through the LA warehouse, you get free shipping at $39. So be sure to check out that down below. I think this came out pretty good. I'm not mad at it. The only thing I will say is that I do wish the backing on their white was blue, but that's neither here nor there. We can live with it. I still think this came out really, really nice. I think this was super easy, other than the weeding or the getting the white off, which still wasn't bad. I think this worked out perfectly. If you guys have any questions about this or any of the other things that we do, please let me know in those comments. If you want to cut off matte, let me know. I would love to make some more tutorials of big off matte cuts for you guys. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and as always, happy crafting.